This is the world of the Vikings, a people who emerged from the Scandinavian lands of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark in the late 700s, and whose adventures, conquests, and explorations would echo across Europe and beyond for centuries. This document aims to weave together the threads of their epic story, exploring not only their fierce reputation as raiders but also their complex society, rich mythology, and enduring legacy. Part 1. The Northmen emerge. From the icy lands of Scandinavia, a people emerged who would leave an indelible mark on history, the Vikings. Their story begins in the lands now known as Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, a region characterized by long, rugged coastlines, dense forests, and harsh winters. These geographical conditions played a crucial role in shaping the Viking way of life and their eventual expansion across Europe and beyond. The term Viking itself is somewhat ambiguous, with its origins debated by scholars. It may have derived from the Old Norse word vik, meaning bay or inlet, referring to the coastal areas from which these seafarers often embarked on their journeys. Another theory suggests it came from a term denoting a sea voyage or expedition. The Old Norse verb vikinga means to go on an expedition. Regardless of its precise etymology, the word Viking has come to represent the Norse people who engaged in raiding, trading, and exploring from the late 8th to the mid-11th centuries. It's important to note that the term Viking described an activity, not an ethnicity. Not all people from Scandinavia were Vikings, and the term was often used to describe those who went on these expeditions. The Viking Age, as this period is known, roughly spans from the late 700s to the mid-11th century. One of the most commonly cited starting points is the raid on the monastery of Lindisfarne in England in 793. This attack, which targeted a center of Christian learning and wealth, sent shockwaves across Europe and marked the beginning of a new era of Norse activity. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle described the Viking raid as devastating. The end of the Viking Age is often associated with the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, when the English King Harold Godwinson defeated the Norwegian King Harald Hardrada. This battle occurred just days before the Battle of Hastings, where William the Conqueror defeated Harold Godwinson. However, Viking influence and activity did not abruptly cease at this point, but rather gradually integrated into the broader historical narrative of Europe. Prior to the Viking Age, Scandinavia was inhabited by Germanic tribes who lived in relative isolation. These societies were not monolithic. For example, the Swedes were known for their eastward expansion, while the Norwegians focused more on westward voyages. They were primarily agrarian societies, with farming and animal husbandry forming the basis of their economy. They cultivated crops such as barley, rye, and oats, and raised animals such as cattle, pigs, and sheep. They also possessed skilled craftsmanship, particularly in metalworking and shipbuilding. The Vikings were master craftsmen, producing intricate jewelry, weapons, and tools. Their skills in creating ornate metalwork were highly valued. These skills would later prove essential for the Vikings' long voyages and raids. The reasons for the Viking expansion are complex and multifaceted. Several factors likely contributed to their outward movement. One important factor was population growth. Scandinavia's limited arable land could not sustain its increasing population, leading many young men to seek their fortunes elsewhere. Primogeniture, the practice of the eldest son inheriting the majority of the family's wealth and land, also pushed younger sons to seek opportunities and wealth through raiding and trading. Technological advancements, particularly in shipbuilding, played a crucial role. The development of the longship, a fast and maneuverable vessel, enabled the Vikings to travel vast distances across the sea. The longship was a marvel of engineering for its time. Political and social changes within Scandinavia also played a role. The consolidation of power by ambitious chieftains and kings led to increased competition for resources and land. Younger sons, who often inherited little, were more likely to seek opportunities abroad. The rise of powerful rulers like Harald Fairhair in Norway led to some Vikings seeking opportunities elsewhere, either due to being forced out or seeking more independent opportunities. The allure of wealth and adventure also cannot be discounted. The tales of rich lands and treasures to be found in other parts of Europe undoubtedly motivated many Vikings to embark on perilous journeys. Sagas, epic stories passed down through generations, spoke of heroes and great battles, further fueling the desire for adventure and glory. Viking society was also highly stratified, with a clear division between the Jarl's nobility, Carl's free men, and thrall slaves. This social structure influenced every aspect of their lives, from their daily routines to their participation in warfare and trade. The Vikings were not just raiders and pillagers, as they are often portrayed. They were also traders, explorers, and settlers. They established trade routes that stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean, and even as far as the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, exchanging goods such as furs, amber, and slaves for silver, gold, silk, spices, and other valuable commodities. They explored new lands, reaching Iceland in the 9th century, Greenland in the 10th century, and even North America, which they called Vinland, around the year 1000. The Viking exploration of North America is a testament to their incredible navigational skills. They used sophisticated navigational tools and techniques, including the sun compass and knowledge of celestial navigation, to traverse vast oceans. The impact of the Vikings on European history is profound. They raided and traded with many parts of Europe, leaving their mark on the political, social, and cultural landscape. They established settlements in England, Ireland, Scotland, France, and other regions, often intermingling with the local populations. For example, the city of Dublin in Ireland was founded by the Vikings. They also played a significant role in the development of trade and commerce in medieval Europe. The Viking Age was a time of great upheaval and transformation, and the Vikings were at the center of it all. Their story is one of adventure, conquest, and cultural exchange, a saga that continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. Part 2: Seafaring and Society. The Viking longship was the key to their success. These remarkable vessels were long, and shallow drafted, making them ideal for both navigating rivers and crossing the open sea. The design of the longship allowed for quick travel and easy beach landings. They were propelled by both oars and sails, allowing them to travel quickly and efficiently. The sails were often made of wool and could be decorated with colorful patterns, sometimes depicting scenes from Norse mythology or Viking legends. The longship was not only a means of transportation but also a symbol of Viking power and ingenuity. Different types of longships existed, such as the Snekja and the Drakar, each with its own specific features. The Drakar, or dragon ship, was often larger and more elaborately decorated, used by chieftains and kings. Viking society was structured in a hierarchical manner, with kings and chieftains at the top. These leaders held significant power and often ruled over specific territories, known as kingdoms or chieftaincies. Below them were the free men, known as carls, who were farmers, craftsmen, and warriors. Carls were the backbone of Viking society, owning land and participating in the thing, the local assembly. At the bottom of the social hierarchy were the thralls, who were slaves. Slavery was a common practice in Viking society, with slaves often acquired through raiding or trade. Thralls had limited rights and were considered property. The treatment of thralls varied, but they generally performed the most arduous and undesirable tasks. Family and kinship were central to Viking society. The extended family, or Eat, played a crucial role in providing support, protection, and social identity. The Eat was a network of related households that offered mutual support and protection, and disputes between members could lead to blood feuds. Disputes were often settled through a system of laws and assemblies known as things. These assemblies provided a forum for debate, negotiation, and the administration of justice. The thing was a central institution in Viking society where freemen gathered to make decisions and resolve conflicts, and where laws were passed and disputes were settled. Viking religion was based on Norse mythology, a complex system of beliefs centered on a pantheon of gods and goddesses. Gods like Odin, the All-Father, Thor, the god of thunder, and Freya, the goddess of love and beauty, played important roles in Viking cosmology. Odin was associated with wisdom, poetry, and war, while Thor was the protector of Asgard and the god of thunder. Freya was the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, but also of war and magic. Other important gods included Tyr, the god of justice and war, Loki, the trickster god, and Heimdall, the guardian of Asgard. The Vikings believed in an afterlife, with warriors who died in battle believed to be taken to Valhalla, Odin's hall, where they would feast and prepare for Ragnarok, the final battle. Valhalla was a hall of the slain, where warriors feasted and awaited the end of the world, and was just one part of a complex system of beliefs about death and the afterlife. Norse mythology also included a creation myth, stories of heroes and monsters, and a complex cosmology that included realms like Asgard, home of the gods, Midgard, home of humans, and Hel, the realm of the dead. The Vikings practiced a form of paganism, with worship centered on these gods and goddesses. They held religious ceremonies and festivals, often outdoors at sacred sites. These sites, known as hofs or hergs, could be natural features like groves or springs, or constructed buildings. Sacrifices, including animal sacrifices, were sometimes offered to the gods. Religious practices varied across Scandinavia and changed over time, especially with increasing contact with Christianity. The Vikings were skilled craftsmen, producing a wide range of goods, including weapons, jewelry, and textiles. Their metalworking skills were particularly renowned, and they created intricate and beautiful objects using techniques such as casting, forging, and engraving. Viking art was characterized by its distinctive style, featuring complex patterns, animal motifs, and mythological themes. Viking art is known for its intricate designs and zoomorphic patterns, often incorporating stylized animals and abstract shapes. Viking society was also characterized by a strong warrior culture. Warfare was a frequent occurrence, both within Scandinavia and abroad. Viking warriors were known for their bravery, ferocity, and skill in combat. They used a variety of weapons, including swords, axes, spears, and shields. Viking swords, often adorned with intricate designs, were highly prized and sometimes given names such as Legbiter or Blood Taster. The Vikings developed effective military tactics, often relying on surprise attacks and coordinated assaults, such as the shield wall formation, a defensive tactic where warriors stood shoulder to shoulder with their shields interlocked. The The Vikings' worldview was shaped by their environment, their religion, and their social structure. They saw themselves as warriors and explorers, destined to seek their fortunes and glory through adventure and conquest. They had a strong sense of honor and loyalty, and they valued courage, strength, and resilience. Concepts like weird fate and honor were central to their worldview, influencing their actions and decisions. The Vikings' impact on the world was not limited to raiding and warfare. They also played a significant role in trade and commerce, establishing extensive networks that connected Scandinavia with other parts of Europe and beyond. They were skilled navigators and seafarers, capable of undertaking long and dangerous voyages. They used tools like the sun compass and celestial navigation to find their way, and their knowledge of the seas and weather patterns was extensive. They also brought new ideas, technologies, and cultural influences to the lands they visited. The Viking Age was a time of great change and interaction, and the Vikings were at the forefront of this transformation. Part 3: Food and Sustenance. The Viking diet was largely determined by the climate and geography of Scandinavia. The long, cold winters and the limited arable land meant that farming was often challenging. The growing season was short, and the soil was not always ideal for agriculture. However, the Vikings were resourceful and adapted to their environment, developing a varied and nutritious diet based on a combination of agriculture, animal husbandry, hunting, and fishing. Their diet varied regionally, depending on the available resources. Grains were a staple food in the Viking diet. Barley was the most commonly grown grain, as it was well suited to the cool climate. It was used to make bread and ale. Rye and oats were also cultivated, though to a lesser extent. These grains were used to make bread, porridge, and other basic foodstuffs. Viking bread was typically dense and coarse, often made from a mixture of different grains. It was hearty and filling, providing sustained energy. Porridge, known as grauta, was another important staple, providing a filling and nutritious meal. Different types of grauta were made, using various grains and sometimes adding milk or honey, and sometimes even meat. Meat was another essential component of the Viking diet. Beef, pork, and mutton were the most common types of meat consumed. Cattle, pigs, and sheep were raised for both meat and dairy products. Animal bones found at Viking archaeological sites provide evidence of their meat consumption. Hunting also played a significant role in providing meat, with animals such as deer, elk, and wild boar being hunted. These hunts provided not only meat but also valuable resources like hides and antlers, which were used for clothing and tools. Meat was often preserved through smoking, salting, or drying, which allowed it to be stored for long periods, particularly during the winter months. Preserved meat, such as jerky and salted cuts, was crucial for survival during the long Scandinavian winters and for long sea voyages. Fish was an abundant and readily available food source for the Vikings, given their proximity to the sea and numerous rivers and lakes. Cod, herring, salmon, and other types of fish were caught in large quantities. The Vikings were skilled fishermen, using various techniques to catch fish, including nets, lines, and spears. Fish was often dried, salted, or smoked to preserve it. Preserved fish was an important trade commodity for the Vikings, and was traded across long distances. Seafood, such as shellfish and seaweed, also formed part of the Viking diet. Dairy products were an important source of nutrition for the Vikings. Milk from cows, sheep, and goats was used to make cheese, butter, and other dairy products. These products provided essential fats and proteins. Cheese was a particularly valuable food, as it could be stored for long periods and provided a concentrated source of protein and fat. Different types of cheese were likely made, though specific varieties are not always well documented, but it is believed they made hard cheeses similar to modern-day cheddar or Swiss cheese. Vegetables and fruits played a less prominent role in the Viking diet, but they were still consumed when available. Root vegetables such as turnips, carrots, and parsnips were grown and stored for the winter. These vegetables provided essential vitamins and minerals. Wild berries such as blueberries, lingonberries, and cranberries were gathered in the summer and autumn. These berries provided essential vitamins and minerals and were also used to make dyes and flavorings. The Vikings also consumed a variety of beverages. Water was the most common drink, but ale and mead were also popular, particularly during feasts and celebrations. Ale was a type of beer brewed from barley, while mead was an alcoholic beverage made from honey. Mead was often associated with special occasions and celebrations, and was sometimes flavored with herbs and spices. The Vikings typically ate 2 meals a day, a morning meal and an evening meal. The morning meal, known as dagmal, was usually a simple affair consisting of porridge or bread. The evening meal, known as natmal, was the main meal of the day, and it was often a more substantial and elaborate affair featuring meat, fish, and vegetables. The Vikings were known for their hospitality, and feasts played an important role in their social life. Feasts were held to celebrate important events such as weddings, funerals, and religious festivals. They were also an opportunity for people to come together, share food and drink, and strengthen social bonds. Feasts could last for several days and were important social and political events, often involving elaborate rituals and performances. In conclusion, the Viking diet was diverse and nutritious, reflecting their resourcefulness and adaptability to their environment. It was based on a combination of agriculture, animal husbandry, hunting, and fishing, and it provided the Vikings with the energy and sustenance they needed to undertake their long voyages and raids. Part 4. Health and Hygiene. Contrary to the popular image of dirty and unkempt barbarians, the Vikings had surprisingly sophisticated practices when it came to health and hygiene. While their standards may not have matched modern practices, they were certainly more advanced than many of their contemporaries in Europe. The Vikings placed a high value on cleanliness, and they bathed regularly, often once a week. Archaeological evidence such as combs and ear spoons found at Viking sites supports this. This was a far more frequent practice than that of many other Europeans at the time, who often bathed only a few times a year. The Vikings used soap made from animal fat and wood ashes to cleanse themselves. This soap was similar to a primitive form of hard soap and is chemically similar to soap produced today. They also used combs made from bone or antler to keep their hair clean and free of lice. These combs were often finely crafted and decorated, indicating their importance in personal grooming. The Vikings also paid attention to their personal appearance. Men often wore their hair long and carefully styled, and they sometimes bleached it to make it lighter. Lighter hair was sometimes considered a sign of beauty or status, or associated with youth and virility. They also groomed their beards and mustaches, keeping them neatly trimmed. Well-groomed hair and beards were a sign of masculinity and social standing. Women wore their hair in elaborate braids and adorned themselves with jewelry. Viking women wore a variety of jewelry, including brooches, necklaces, and bracelets, often made of silver or gold, which served both decorative and practical purposes such as fastening clothing. The Vikings had a basic understanding of medicine, and they used a variety of remedies to treat illnesses and injuries. Our knowledge of Viking medicine comes from a variety of sources, including archaeological finds such as surgical tools and written accounts in the sagas and Eddas. They used herbs, honey, and other natural substances to heal wounds and fight infections. For example, honey was used as an antiseptic due to its antibacterial properties, and certain herbs like yarrow and plantain were used to treat wounds. They also practiced surgery, performing procedures such as amputations and trepanation, drilling holes in the skull. Evidence of successful amputations has been found at Viking burial sites, with skeletal remains showing signs of healing after the procedure. While their medical knowledge was limited, they were able to treat many common ailments and injuries. Viking healthcare also incorporated elements of magic and superstition. They believed that illnesses could be caused by supernatural forces, such as curses or evil spirits. They used charms, amulets, and rituals to protect themselves from these forces and to promote healing. These practices were often intertwined with their religious beliefs, and healing rituals might involve prayers to specific gods or goddesses. The Vikings' emphasis on cleanliness and hygiene extended to their homes and settlements. They kept their houses relatively clean and tidy, and they disposed of waste properly. They also had access to clean water, which was essential for their health. Viking settlements were often located near sources of fresh water, such as rivers or springs. The Vikings' healthy diet also contributed to their overall well-being. Their diet, rich in protein, vitamins, and minerals, provided them with the energy and nutrients they needed to stay strong and healthy. Their consumption of fish, in particular, provided them with omega-3 fatty acids, which are beneficial for heart health and brain function. The Vikings were also physically active, which helped them to maintain their health and fitness. They engaged in a variety of activities such as farming, hunting, fishing, and warfare, which required them to be strong and agile. They also participated in sports and games such as wrestling, running, and swimming. These activities helped to keep them in good physical condition and were also important for social bonding and recreation. In conclusion, the Vikings had a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of health and hygiene. They placed a high value on cleanliness, bathed regularly, and paid attention to their personal appearance. They also had a basic understanding of medicine and used a variety of remedies to treat illnesses and injuries. Their healthy diet and active lifestyle also contributed to their overall well-being. Part 5: Legacy and Long-Lasting Impact. The Viking Age, though relatively brief, left an enduring legacy on the world. The Vikings' impact extended far beyond their raids and conquests, shaping the political, social, and cultural landscape of Europe and beyond. In England, the Vikings established the Danelaw, a region where Viking law and customs prevailed. The Danelaw significantly influenced English law and language, leaving a lasting imprint on the development of English common law. They also contributed to the development of the English language, with many Old Norse words becoming integrated into the English vocabulary. Words like sky, window, egg, and they have Old Norse origins, demonstrating the profound linguistic impact of the Vikings. The Norman conquest of England in 1066, led by William the Conqueror, a descendant of Viking settlers, marked the end of the Viking Age in England but also further solidified Viking influence. The Normans brought significant changes to English society, including the feudal system, which reshaped land ownership and social hierarchy. In France, the Vikings established the Duchy of Normandy, a powerful and influential region. The Normans, as they came to be known, played a major role in European history, conquering England in 1066 and participating in the Crusades. The Normans were known for their military prowess and their architectural achievements, building magnificent castles and cathedrals that still stand today. In Ireland, the Vikings founded several important cities, including Dublin, Waterford, and Wexford. These cities became major centres of trade and commerce, transforming Ireland's economy and connecting it to wider European trade networks. They also engaged in trade and warfare with the Irish, leaving a lasting impact on the island's culture and history. The Vikings' influence on Irish culture can still be seen today in the country's language, place names, and artistic traditions. The Vikings also explored and settled new lands. They reached Iceland in the 9th century, establishing a unique and vibrant society. The Icelandic sagas provide detailed accounts of Viking exploration and settlement, offering valuable insights into their worldview and social organization. They went on to explore Greenland in the 10th century, establishing settlements that lasted for several centuries. Eric the Red was a famous Viking explorer who established the Greenland settlements, and the reasons for the eventual abandonment of these settlements are still debated by historians. Most famously, they reached North America around the year 1000, centuries before Christopher Columbus. Leif Erikson is credited with leading the Viking expedition to North America, and his voyage is celebrated in Icelandic sagas. While their settlements in North America were short-lived, they represent a remarkable feat of exploration and navigation. The Viking presence in North America is supported by archaeological evidence, such as the settlement at Elance Orks Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada, which provides tangible proof of their transatlantic voyages. The Vikings' influence extended to trade and commerce. They established extensive trade networks that connected Scandinavia with other parts of Europe, the Middle East, and even Central Asia. They traded goods such as furs, amber, slaves, and weapons for silver, gold, spices, and other valuable commodities. Viking trade routes facilitated the exchange of goods and ideas across vast distances, contributing to the economic and cultural development of medieval Europe. The Vikings' impact on art and culture is also significant. Their distinctive artistic style, characterized by intricate patterns, animal motifs, and mythological themes, can be seen in their metalwork, wood carvings, and textiles. Viking art is renowned for its complexity and beauty, and it continues to inspire artists and designers today. Their oral traditions, including their sagas and eddas, provide valuable insights into their beliefs, values, and way of life. The sagas are epic tales that recount Viking history and mythology, preserving their stories for generations, while the Eddas are collections of Old Norse poems that explore Norse mythology and cosmology. The Viking Age came to an end in the mid-11th century as the Scandinavian kingdoms consolidated power and integrated into the broader European political system. The adoption of Christianity also played a role in the decline of traditional Viking culture. The influence of the Church grew, leading to the decline of Norse paganism and the assimilation of Viking societies into Christian Europe. However, the Vikings' legacy lived on, shaping the course of European history in profound ways. In conclusion, The Vikings were a complex and fascinating people who left an indelible mark on the world. They were not just raiders and warriors but also traders, explorers, and settlers. They shaped the political, social, and cultural landscape of Europe and beyond, and their legacy continues to resonate today. From their remarkable seafaring skills to their intricate art and rich mythology, the Vikings remain a source of fascination and inspiration. Their story is a testament to the human spirit of adventure, exploration, and resilience.